On today's Join Us in France, it's the holiday season. Let's talk about perfect gifts for the Francophile in your life. If this podcast is helpful to you and you'd like to show us your support, make your Amazon purchases through Join Us. It doesn't cost you a penny more, and we make a small commission. Go to joinusinfrance.com/support or click on the picture on the left-hand side of the website. Right now it's a Père Noël because of the holidays, but I'll change the photo just to keep it interesting. Merci beaucoup! This is Join Us in France, episode 94. Hello, I'm Annie, and Join Us in France is a show about all things French. I love France. I was born and raised here. I live in France, but I've also lived in the UK and the US for a couple of decades, so I have a unique perspective on my own country. I want to help you understand France better, at least the way I see France in my daily life. Today I have a shout out for Dara Curran, who gave the show a donation. Thank you so much. One more person keeping me motivated to put in all the work to get this show out every week. Thank you very much, Dara. If you like this episode, you'll probably also like episode 45, which was on Christmas markets in France. In September and October, I kept telling you how wonderful the weather was and how auspicious for travelers it had been. Well, things have changed a little bit. It's definitely gotten colder and wetter and foggier. I'm looking out the window right now, and it's definitely a cold, almost freezing fall morning with quite a bit of fog. I'm not sure if we'll see the sky at all today. Do you want to give back to Join Us in France? Write us a review on iTunes. So today there are going to be gifts for cooks, gifts for travelers, gifts for readers, gifts for moviegoers, gifts for kids, a couple of them anyway, gifts for men, although a lot of the gifts could be for either men or women, gifts for sports enthusiasts, gifts for the fashionista, gifts for the host or the hostess. Well, at least I'll get to a lot of those. I'll put links to some of these products on the show notes at joinusinfrance.com/94. And I need your help with something. I've been told many times that anything travel should be big on Pinterest. Well, I haven't really been able to make it work. I don't spend very much time on Pinterest. I don't really get Pinterest. So if you understand Pinterest, you like it, you love it, and you can maybe give me some tips, or maybe you can do a little for the show to promote it on Pinterest, that would be awesome, because I know it's important. There are too many things I could be doing, and there's only so many hours in the day. So if you'd like to volunteer a little bit of your time to help me with Pinterest, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so let me start with gifts that are for the host or hostess or cook. And those could be either gender, by the way. Let's make that very, very clear. Okay, first thing is something that I saw on Amazon that I really liked, and I will put the link to that product on joinusinfrance.com/94. It's a cheese marker set. They look like thought bubbles, you know. They're nice round things with a poking end, and they are made of slate. And they come with some chalk so you can write the name of the cheese you are serving. Now, that would come in really handy. Even if you already have a very well-appointed kitchen, you probably don't have that. And they look really good. And I think if you have nice handwriting, it would really set off your cheese plate in a very nice way. So that one I want for myself. I don't have it. I just looked at it and I was like, ooh, that's really, really nice. The other one is, again, to do with cheese, because a lot of French things have to do with cheese. It's a cheese slicer. Now, The reason why you need one of those is that if you're going to make raclette or serve a cheese platter, it's really best if you slice your cheese at the last minute so it doesn't dry out. But slicing cheese is not that much fun. When you don't have the right implement, it can get really frustrating because it won't cut right. So I finally broke down and I bought one and I love it. It's by Oxo Good Grips. It comes with a replacement wire. You can set the width at which you want to cut. It's really, really good, and it's not very expensive. I've had it for a couple of years. It's still very good. So that's one I definitely recommend. All right, a cheese board, but one with a lid. That's important. I have to admit, I'm not a big fan of cheese boards, generally speaking, because I have beautiful serving plates and they do just fine. But there's one thing that would be really nice, and that's a serving board with a dome or a glass bell or a roof of some sort, because cheese is best served at room temperature. And it gets really stinky in your kitchen if you leave it out, and it can attract flies if it's spring or summer. It's just, you want to cover it up. And there aren't a lot of good choices for such items in the US. I found a good one for you, and I'll put a link to it on journesinfrance.com/94. But this is the kind of gift that you might want to get while you're in France next time. You can ask for a cloche à fromage or cave à fromage. And typically what most French people do is they have one, and it's made of a durable plastic with a lid. And it's where you keep all your cheeses and you just put it in the fridge. And on the day you want to serve cheese at the end of the meal, you take out the whole thing and put it on the table. And you might even serve it like that if it's not a fancy occasion. It works really well because it keeps the odors under control both in and out of your fridge. But those are ones that they're for sale on Amazon.fr, but I haven't seen one that was large enough on Amazon.com. So hunt around, but it might be one that you can find easily. It's very easy to find in France. Any grocery store will have a few options, and if you go to a fancier cooking implement kind of store, you'll find quite a few. And a few years ago, I found one at an open-air market that is very nice, and I have it and I use it. It's artisanal. It's like it's made out of bamboo that's been worked, thin slices of bamboo that have been worked together, weaved together, and it has a retractable mesh top, which is really, really cool because in the summer, I use it when we are eating on the terrace outside, but it's really nice to be able to put the retractable mesh top over the cheese, and then when you want to serve yourself, you just push it away and then put it back on. It's very, very nice. So maybe you'll find something like that at an open air market, and I think you'd love it. All right, now let's go for the more expensive items, but yet items that I think any cook would want. French people use Dutch ovens, but we don't use Dutch ovens the way Americans use Dutch ovens, which is when they go camping. Ours are by Le Creuset, and again, I'll put a link on the website, episode 94, and they are absolutely fabulous. The one I have is quite small. It's probably 100 years old. I don't know. I don't know who it came down from, but it's been in the family for a while, and it's really still as good as new. It doesn't chip, it doesn't stain, it doesn't rust, it's enameled. It's really perfect. It's a bit expensive, but it's perfect. I use it like a crock pot on low heat on my induction stovetop, or you can put it in the oven, any heat you want, and I use it to make all sorts of stews. You can also, if you want to put it on high heat to do like a stir fry kind of thing, it works perfectly as a stir fry pan. And in the summer, if you want to have something that will stay cold and covered, well, you put your Le Creuset Dutch oven in the freezer for a few hours, and then you put your cold food in it and you put it out on the terrace, and it'll stay cold for hours. It's really, really, really good. It's very versatile. I think it's a good thing to have, but, it's expensive, so it wouldn't be my very first pot that I buy, but it would be probably one of the first 10 for sure. The other thing, and that might be one of the first 2 or 3 pots that I think you need as somebody who wants to cook French food, is a pressure cooker. The pressure cooker at my house gets used so much, it actually lives on my induction stovetop most of the time. I don't put it away that often. I have one. It's a Calypso pressure cooker, and they sell the exact same one on Amazon.com, so I'll give you a link to that. It is absolutely fabulous. There are so many French dishes that you can't make without it. I mean, you could, I suppose, but you would have to have the whole day. For instance, if you want to make a pot-au-feu, which is an item in the winter that we eat maybe twice a month or something, it's pretty common at our table. You need a pressure cooker, because the meat you put in pot-au-feu is not super tender. It's shanks, typically beef shanks, and they are pretty tough. And so you need to roast them in the pressure cooker, and then you fill it up to the top of the meat with hot water, and then you put the lid on, and then put it under pressure and cook for, depending on the size of the meat, it's going to be 30 minutes to 40 minutes or something like that. It goes really fast, and that same meat, if you wanted to do it like in a pot just without the pressure, it would take you 5 hours. So it really speeds things up, and it's really nice. I really love this stuff. I use it also to make pork carnitas, although I could also do that in Le Creuset. So what my strategy has been is I have a small Dutch oven and a big pressure cooker. And that way, I can, depending on how many I'm cooking for, I can use the one or the other. Okay, let's move on to smaller ticket items now. There's one that I think anybody who loves France should have, and that's the Mastering the Art of French Cooking books by Julia Childs. There are 2 of them, and they're really good books, because she really got the way French people really cook. French people are not all trained chefs. Most of us have never taken a formal class in cooking in our lives. We just observe how other people do it around us. And there are definitely tricks that can be learned very quickly and very efficiently. Well, Julia Child really learned them all and put them all in her books. And I think it's an old book, it's 40 years old by now, but I think it's still a wonderful book. If you're looking for a gift for a person that has a lot already and loves France, well, they may not have that set of books, these 2 books, because they are old. So they probably have a lot of cookbooks, but maybe not that one, and it's a really, really good one. Something very, very small, Herbe de Provence. That is something, you can't cook French things without it. So, and you can't cook most things without it. Even if you want to make an omelette, just throw a little bit of Herbe de Provence in it. It makes it so nice. The other small gift that's very, very nice and changes everything is a nice fancy cooking oil. So, for example, you could get a walnut oil or a hazelnut oil. They add so much flavor to the simplest little dishes. My husband, for instance, loves to do his morning eggs with walnut oil. Just a tiny bit of walnut oil, and it changes the flavor, and it's really nice. But if you add some Herbe de Provence, well, it makes everything come to life. It's a really nice, you can use it as a rub on meats too. You can put it in pasta, you can put it on eggs, you can make it on anything, and it's also pretty. So, and that's what, like $5, and you have a nice thing of Herbe de Provence. There's some on Amazon. I'll find you a link and put it on the website, but you can find it at your local grocery store too. It's readily available. Another thing that says France is the mussel pots. They are very specific. They have a specific shape and they're enamel, and they are used to serve moules marinières. Now, you don't really need the special pot to make moules marinières. I don't have the special pots because I have a small kitchen, and so I don't have room to keep all of these things. But if it's a dish that you particularly like, having the pot to go with is very nice. Typically, the way I make moules marinières is you buy the moule, the mussels whole, and to cook them, you have to just throw them in the pot. No water. You add no water or anything. Just super high heat. And keep it on for maybe 2-3 minutes, high heat. And then you turn off the heat and you keep it covered, and they will all open up. And then you can decide if you want to do a wine broth to go with or a cream broth. The cream broth is les moules normandes from Normandy. That's how they add cream to everything. It's really, really good. But if you want to keep it, not quite so full of calories, you can do a wine broth, or you could add a little bit of garlic and onion. It's really good. You could use thyme, basil. You could herbe de Provence again would be very nice. So you can make it any way you like, and you're gonna because you have this nice pot, you're gonna feel like you're in France, you're in Brittany or something, which is kind of fun. Another one that is very small, not that expensive, and really, really helpful is a crepe pan. Now, if you've ever made crepes, and French people make crepes all the time, I swear there are French women who make 100 crepes every week, so they get really, really good at it. For every occasion, they're always showing up with a dish of, a stack of crepes to share with everybody. I'm not quite into it, but lots of people are, and it's a habit you develop. The more you make crepes, the better they're going to be, the thinner and the lighter they're going to be. It's very easy to do with a little bit of practice. You're not going to get it right the first time, okay? You might not get it right the first 5 times. But, Julia Child has a very good recipe for that, and it just takes a little bit of practice. But you do need a crepe pan. It doesn't need to be the kind that plugs in, because you have 2 kinds. You have the kind that it's electric and it's like standalone kind of thing. I don't really like those that much. What I like is just to have a crepe pan that goes on the stovetop. It makes it super nice, and it's not very expensive. It's probably $20 or something. And the reason why you want to have a special pan for your crepes is that if you use everyday frying pan that you have, it's going to be damaged. It's going to have some, because you've been using it every day, you've put some damage to the surface, and your crepes are going to stick. Whereas if it has its own pan, then it'll stay nice longer, and they're made for that. So they really, it's one of those things where you do better with a specialized pan. One other thing is a fondue set. Now, fondue pots are you could do it with any pan you want. You don't have to have a fondue set. But again, it looks nice if you do. It's usually an enamel pot, somewhat rounded. It has a source of heat underneath. You have to make sure that the source of heat is pretty good, because it needs to keep the oil or the chocolate or the broth hot. But what you typically do is you heat your oil or your chocolate or your broth in another pan on the stove, and the little light underneath is just there to keep it warm. You don't, you don't put it in. That small flame is not going to make things hot enough, fast enough. But you could do the beef fondue, la fondue bourguignonne is what it's called, where you spear pieces of meat and then you put them in hot oil, and then you use some sauces and have a salad on the side. It's absolutely delicious, and it makes for a nice, friendly, slow meal that you can share with friends. You're not eating quickly. It's a nice, leisurely, let's kind of talk kind of meal. It's very nice. Of course, you can do the cheese fondue as well. It's in the same pot. It's just you use a mix of melted cheeses and bread. Or you could do a chocolate fondue in which you dip fruit, and those are very, very good too. So you could use that one pot, that one fondue set for 3 types of fondue, and I think it's very fun. Oh, I've also seen ones where it's you use a very flavorful broth and very thinly slices pieces of meat that you barely put in. It's not as common, but I've seen it done and it works as well. So there you go. And maybe what you need to get for that special Francophile is a French press. Now, I have to tell you, very few people in France use a French press anymore. Most French people these days use the Nespresso system of espresso coffee, where you buy your capsules and you have this small little Italian-looking thing that just takes a single capsule, makes a single cup. Well, it's not even a cup. It's pretty small of espresso coffee. That's what most French people have every day. There are a few old style like me that like the drip coffee. But we have both at my house because when we have visitors, I drink drip coffee all the time, but visitors never want that. They always want the espresso stuff. So, yeah, a French press is a very nice thing to have, and I like to make tea in my French press, as a matter of fact. So, it's a nice thing to have, but realize that that's not how we do it in France at all. Ooh, one thing that's very nice, and it's a very easy dessert to make. It's creme brulee. It's just creamy custard. It's easy to make. And then the one thing you need is the mini blowtorch to make your creme brulee. It doesn't have to be one that's made especially for creme brulee, okay? You can use any good blowtorch to make your creme brulee. Again, practice a little bit, but it's really, really easy. You'll make it twice, and then you'll be ready to really impress everybody with your creme brulee that you can just whip up in front of them with a blowtorch. I think that might be something that appeals to men, making the creme brulee. So what you do is, typically, the way I like to do it is I make the creme brulee, the custard, ahead of time. I like to make them in dishes that stack even when they're full, so that it doesn't take too much room in the fridge. And you put them in the fridge and you keep them for however long. You can keep them for 12 hours or whatever. And then at the last minute you add your sugar on top and you blowtorch it, and it's lovely. It's very fancy and very nice, and it tastes really, really good. And if you want to bring just a touch of France into your home, without turning into a cliche, you might want to add like a Provence tablecloth that you use on occasion, that you can use on occasion. Those are very beautiful, and they are typical of the area, and I'll find a good one to put on the website. The other thing that you can do is, with just a little touch of France, is like have some throw pillows. Just have your normal dining room, your normal living area, and just add a few pillows that say something in French. Or I found one that says, "Paris is always a good idea." It's a quote by Audrey Hepburn, apparently. I haven't verified that. I don't want to be, but this is what it says on the throw pillows. I'm going to assume it's true. When I lived in France, I always liked to have a little touch of France in my home. Just a touch, not too much. You don't want to turn into a cliche of a place, but it's very nice to have, a little tablecloth, Provence tablecloth here, maybe a throw pillow, maybe a lamp in the shape of the Eiffel Tower, which is true. I had one for a long time. That sort of thing, a touch here and there, and it can make it very nice. I'm going to have to be back to the cooking implements. You really need a Madeleine cookie pan. Madeleine are so easy to make. We've talked about making macarons before. Macarons, by comparison, are really tricky to make. Les Madeleines, like in the Madeleine de Proust, it's so easy to make. It's just that you need the right pan. So for the Francophile, you can give them a cookie pan, a Madeleine cookie pan. It's not very expensive. It's pretty easy to find. They're on Amazon and so forth. And it'll add a little French, it's if they serve tea with a little Madeleine cookies, that's nice. That's very nice. And a good gift for somebody who wants to learn French is the Pimsleur series. I know lots of people recommend the Rosetta Stone, but I've never been able to learn a single thing from them. It doesn't work for me. For me, it doesn't work. Pimsleur works because it's something you listen to. You have a lesson that takes about 20 minutes every day, and you have to commit to doing it every day. If you have a series that's 50 lessons, well, you have 50 days of listening for 20 minutes each day. And it makes you revisit things over and over again. It's only oral, but that's all you need if you're going to be in France. And it is a very good way to learn a language from scratch and get to the point where you can say a few things and understand a few things. It's not perfect, but it's really good. So Pimsleur method, I will give you a link on joinusinfrance.com/94, because that's something I've used for Spanish. My husband has used it for Hindi, or is it Hindi? Yes, it's Hindi. My daughter and husband have used it for Russian, and it's well done. If you have the patience and the commitment to do 20 minutes every day, it's really good. And then, of course, small little gifts that are fun, like you could do magnetic French poetry for your fridge if you're into that. You have all the calendars, the Provence calendars or the France calendars. There are nice coffee table books about beautiful towns in France, photography kind of coffee table books that are very, very nice. Beauty gifts, of course, you have the Savon de Marseille, which is the typical southern Provence soap. It's not that good for your face, though, I must say. It's too abrasive, so you shouldn't wash your face with it. But anyway, if you wash your hands, it's okay. But it'll really dry out your hands. It's too much. But it's a traditional soap. So if you want to teach French to your young children, there's a couple things you can do. The most effective way, I think, is to kind of plunge them into listening to French all the time. Radio Pomme d'Api is very good for that. It's a radio station that you can listen to online, and I'll put a link for that. And they play all day long. They play kids songs and things, and some of it is not in French, but most of it is in French. So I think your kids might enjoy that. Of course, you also have the flashcards, and I'll put a link to that to the flashcards. But I'm not sure that doing flashcards is really going to help your kids. Well, maybe if your French is good and you're good at stimulating them, maybe it'll work. The other thing I need to mention that I didn't get back to is the thing that French people do a lot, especially French men, is cycling. And for the cyclist in your life, there's a DVD that's supposed to be super good. I haven't watched it myself, but it's called The Magnificent Seven. It's a Tour de France kind of DVD, and it shows the beautiful landscape and talks about the race and all of that. So it's supposed to be super good. I can't imagine sitting down to watch the Tour de France on a DVD, but I'm sure there's lots of people who would enjoy that. So, of course, the soccer jersey and the rugby jersey that I mentioned earlier are really good. The other thing that are kind of fun is the les boules de pétanque. I don't know that you can really play that in America because, you have to play. I guess you could play as a family. if you have several sets. But it's kind of a fun gift. It's not just for men anymore. In my village, they often, a few times a year, they have these competitions that meet in the village, and their teams and everything, with jerseys and everything. And they do their boule competitions, the pétanque, compétition de pétanque. And there are lots of women, and they're not all old. Some of them are pretty young, and it's a skill. So yeah, it could be fun if that's something, but it's very heavy. You definitely don't want to put that in your suitcase coming home from France. And I've saved the best for last. Here are some gifts for travelers. Things that come very handy, no matter where you travel to, but in France especially. One thing that we always take on our trip with us is a power strip. And the power strip I'm going to recommend and put a link to on the website is light and compact, and it does not have surge protection, which is really what you want, because American surge protector strips will trip the general at my house in France. I don't know why, but they all do it. So if you go outside of your own country, it is safest to take a power strip without surge protection. And this one doesn't, and it's very small, it's light, and you can take one hotel outlet and turn it into 4 US plugs. And this is true for Canada too. So this is a fantastic product. Don't go anywhere without it. You'll need it. Another thing that you need when you travel is a good suitcase. And I have tried many suitcases, and it looks like this one is one of the very best. It's the Traveler's Choice suitcases. They are for sale on Amazon. I put on the website a 3-piece set, but you can get them individually, and they seem to be very highly rated also on Consumer Reports. So they're very highly rated on Amazon and on Consumer Reports. So I'm gonna ship a set of those to our address in the US. So when we come back with suitcases full of stuff, we'll put them in these new suitcases. Another thing that's very helpful when you travel is a microfiber travel towel. This is something my husband always has with him. I don't like them that much because they're so thin, but you know what? That's what you want if you're traveling. And they are very absorbent, and they're very good quality. Truly, for a traveler, you can't do any better than that. And again, for that particular product, because there's a bazillion different ones, and I went ahead and did some research to find one that is very good that I can recommend. It dries super fast, and it won't take half of your luggage. Another thing that's kind of fun for travelers is a notebook. Now, I know it sounds really quaint and silly, but you do so many things while on a trip, and then you get home and it's like you forgot all of it. And never mind getting home, maybe the next day you're like, what did we do yesterday? I'm not so sure. Well, to avoid that, keep a little notebook in your pocket and write down things you're doing while you're having this fabulous break at a cafe, and all of these things that you'll love looking at later. And there's some very nice moleskin notebooks that there's some that are very decorative, some that are very plain, but they're very good quality, and I'll put a link on the website as well. And in the same vein of thing, the ticket stub organizer. Now, this is something I need to get for my daughter, and I'm not taking any risk saying it here because she doesn't listen to the podcast, but she is a ticket keeper. So when she goes to an event, she'll want to save the ticket, and then she puts a piece of tape and puts it in a journal, which is a very nice way to do it. But there are actually little books that are made for that purpose. And in those little books, you can organize event tickets, tickets that you got to a museum, or a business card for a cafe or a restaurant that you liked, or a hotel, or anything special that you go to that you'll want to remember. I'm sorry, my voice is getting a little bit raspy. And the last thing I'm going to mention is that if you go to joinusinfrance.com/food, you'll see some more recommendations on food items that would make for good gifts. Also, if you do the same, joinusinfrance.com/movies, you'll see movie recommendations. There's also books recommendations, although I haven't added very many books because I read mostly in English. But once in a while, I'll read a French author, but I just need to read more French authors. It's just that French literature is so serious most of the time. It's real literature, and I like to read for escape, and so there's not that much escaping to do in French books typically. But yeah, we do have some very good authors in French, and I should give them a try more often. All right, well, that's going to do it for today. Thank you very much for your download. Thank you for listening. I love your feedback. If you want to talk back, and if you want to give some suggestions that I didn't think of for gifts for the Francophile, I would love for you to put those on as a comment on joinusinfrance.com/94 or on the Facebook group. And by the way, the Facebook group, it has been growing very nicely, not super fast, but we're to 700 people now, so it's very nice. And I used to complain that we weren't getting very much engagement on Facebook, but it's gotten better. The only thing that could get even better is if you would share the episode posts with your friends. That would be awesome. We haven't gotten to that, but soon. It'll get there soon. All right, thank you very much, and I'll talk to you next week. Au revoir. If Join Us in France makes your life happier and your trip planning easier, let us know by joining the mailing list, subscribing to the podcast, reviewing the show on iTunes, sharing status updates on Facebook, or sending in a donation. Merci beaucoup.